The supply chain application is activated by logging in via the Settings dialog in Designer. In the Setup Settings dialog, there is a new area now under Project called Supply Chain. This is where the settings for the new supply chain application reside. To log into the application, click Login. A browser tab should open to a login screen for the supply chain application. Using your credentials, sign in. Once a screen appears that says, Welcome to Supply Chain, you may close your browser and go back to Designer. The settings for the supply chain application are now active and ready to be modified. In the Preferred Suppliers area, you're able to tell the tool who your preferred component suppliers are and prioritize them. You can currently select from over 70 component suppliers. Clicking the empty field at the bottom of the list and selecting a supplier adds that supplier to your list of preferred suppliers. If you want to change a supplier that's already listed, click on that entry and choose a new supplier from the drop-down. You can change the priority of a supplier by selecting the supplier, then clicking the up or down arrows located in the upper right of the dialog. And lastly, to delete a supplier, select the supplier and click the red X in the upper right. The bottom portion of the settings area, labeled Properties, has 3 fields. The first is board quantity. This is used by the tool to determine how many components you will need. The manufacturer name and manufacturer part number are fields that are used to tell the tool what component properties map to the manufacturer name and manufacturer part number. The properties that are identified here are used by the supply chain application to find the components used in your design at the suppliers that you have identified. Once the supply chain is set up with your preferences, click OK. Now that everything has been set up, a tab in the search window of Designer called Supply Chain should appear. It will use the manufacturer name and manufacturer part number information on the components in your design to find parts from the suppliers that you specified in the Settings dialog. This tab can be easily filtered and sorted, just like any other tab in the search window. You may notice several items when the tab is first opened, including the status indicators on the left and the hyperlinks in the data entries. First, let's talk about the status indicators on the left of the window. If there are any issues that are found with components that you have in your design, they will be easy to identify by glancing at the status indicators on the left of the tab. There are 3 different statuses that you will encounter. Green indicates that the part was found at a supplier and everything is okay. Yellow indicates that the user needs to check the part to make sure that the correct part is selected. Usually this happens when there are multiple records or only partial records are found for the part. Red indicates that there's an issue with the part selected, like that the part is out of stock. A user can hover over a status indicator to get an indication of why a part has a certain status. For instance, hovering over a red icon might indicate that that part, previously selected, is not in stock anymore. Or hovering over a yellow icon might indicate that there are multiple records found and one needs to be chosen by the user. No matter what color the status indicator is, even if the component row is green, the entry can be double-clicked to open the record selection dialog. This dialog gives the user the ability to see what parts match the manufacturer name and manufacturer part number that are available from their list of suppliers. And again, it's easily filtered and sorted. It has all the information on the parts found, such as pricing and packaging, as well as minimum order quantity, so you can choose which entry will be best for your design. If an entry has already been selected for the part, then there will be a blue check mark on the left indicating which entry was chosen. To select an entry to use if one has not been chosen, or to change the entry that you would like to use, click the entry and then click OK at the bottom of the dialog, or just double-click the entry. If everything in the entry is OK, the status will turn green. If for some reason the part that was chosen from the supplier that was selected has issues, like for instance that it is out of stock, the status indicator will change accordingly. When the design is complete and all of the components have been selected in the Supply Chain tab, the last thing to do is to export a supply chain bill of materials. This is done by clicking the Export icon in the upper right of the Supply Chain tab. But before this is done, a couple notes. First, it is best to make sure to refresh the supply chain data before exporting your bill of materials, just to make sure you have the latest information before the export. Second, during this demo, I have only ever had one supply chain tab open. It's possible to have more than one supply chain tab open at a time. Just click the plus sign next to the open tabs in the search window and select Supply Chain. A good reason to have more than one tab open is that when the bill of materials is exported, how the information in the BOM is configured is determined by the view of the Supply Chain tab that you are in. In other words, what you see is what you get in your bill of materials. Using another tab means if I had settings that I use specifically for creating my design, I can keep them, then modify the new tab how I would like to see my bill of materials. It is generally recommended to export the Excel XML version of the bill of materials, although the tool can export CSV too. Once the file is exported, a link to the file will be pushed to the designer output window. So all you have to do is click the link to see the resulting file. Since I exported the XML version, you can see the links for items like datasheets and the click to buy links are all present in the bill of materials and are functional.